WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Welcome back. We Should Know's on there. I want to thank you for being with us today. My name is J.W. Simmons. I'm your host. We look forward to seeing you every week on Tuesdays at 2:30 with replays at 7 p.m. Tuesday, Thursday on Star Communications Channel 16. We're simulcast on WCLN Radio. Our guest today is Willam Sellers, Community Relations with Eastpointe Managed Care Organization. Willam, thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you, JW, for having me. It's an honor. When we had our conversation the other day, I was just thrilled when you extended the opportunity to come and be with you.
Well, absolutely. And you're the perfect person to talk about behavioral health because you graduated from Pembroke, majoring in sociology and psychology. You got 32 years in this particular area of behavioral health. That's a lot of years to put in. And I just want to mention a couple things. One of them, you're a state certified substance abuse counselor, DWI traffic school instructor, mobile crisis supervisor, forensic evaluator, community relations specialist. Married for 25 years, 3 boys and a bulldog.
That's correct.
That is wild.
That's the perfect combination.
I tell you, talk about mental health. This is it. Willam, I really want to emphasize the importance not only of Mental Health Month being May nationally. The theme, of course, is Together for Mental Health. Also, I think you would probably agree that mental health needs to be considered daily, not just 1 month out of the year, but it's part of everybody's life, our ability to sustain some sense of normalcy in our life. I just opened a conversation in a kind of a big way today. What are you sensing in the communities that you serve as it relates to mental health?
That's a wonderful question, JW. And, we're coming out of a pandemic and a lot of things have changed that we have never been exposed to before. And one of the things that has significantly suffered during this time, during my opinion, is our mental health. We have focused on a lot of physical stuff right now with COVID and some other things, but our mental health has kind of suffered. And we're seeing a lot of things right now with our children. Now that we're kind of getting beyond the COVID thing, not that it's not here, still here quite obviously, we have to be cautious of that. But we're seeing issues in school with our children. I'm hearing about it all the time. Communication, because of the isolation, that children have been locked in at home. They have not interacted with friends. And now that they are returning to the classroom and being able to return to interacting with friends and others, those communications skills are not in place as well. They're rusty now. And we're seeing more conflict. We're seeing more anxiety. We're seeing more depression, more disconnect, if you will, which is, causing some issues and things. But, we're hopeful. We're hopeful as we move along that the message will get out there. And this is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're so excited to be able to promote that. And, if there's one message that I would like to get out today is that it's okay not to be okay. What is not okay is when we have challenges and we have issues and we choose to suffer and die in silence because we're afraid of the ugly thing called stigma, which is the shaming, the blaming, the finger pointing. We all know the little jokes about those that have mental health challenges. We think that's funny, just like we know about the substance misuse jokes that we hear all the time. And it's not funny. It's not a laughing matter, because when our mental health suffers, our physical health suffers. And, we have hypertension, we have heart attack, we have all these things that are associated and directly related to our mental health. So it's important that we take time every day for love and kindness, to breathe, to laugh, love, and live, as we began to move back to being in that normal mode that we knew prior to pandemic.
I think it's a couple of things that I want to kind of follow that you just mentioned, and one of them is that you're exactly right in your observation, I believe, is that we have been so shut in and so, I guess, an expectation based on biological safety not to communicate like normal, to put a mask on our face. We've shut down our sensatory responses, and it's resulting in some of the things you mentioned.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, with my own children, they don't smile as much as they did because they've been hidden behind a mask forever. You know, little things that it's embarrassing to adolescents, but acne because of mask. And I'm not negative mask because they serve their purpose,
right.
You know, and I don't want to hear that by any means. But because of that, there have been effects and stuff that we're not as personal. We don't use that eye contact, which is so important in conversation. Stuff. So there's a lot of deficits, you know, of trying to get back to where we were, and we are not where we were. You know, we're set back. You know, academics have suffered during pandemic. You know, our math scores, our reading scores, all of those things, because most of us are not licensed teachers. You know, we're not licensed by the state to do that, but we've stepped up with our children and tried to do instruction and things, and there's been deficits and stuff. And there's frustration now that they're back in school, and there's accountability academically. You know, we're doing EOGs this very week in many of our school systems, you know, and that's very important. You know, we're looking to moving forward, going to college and looking at a career. And we will never get back what we've lost during the pandemic time. And it's affected our mental health, you know, our sense of being and moving forward.
With the theme this year of Together, what should be the takeaway from that theme? That we all have a responsibility for each other, whether it's in your family, outside of your family, the classroom, the community. Is this a shared burden? I mean, you've got 30 plus years in this and you've seen a lot. Do we lose ground when we don't recognize that other folks might need some compassion and care rather than blame and shame?
You know, I very much try to live by golden rule. That, you know, we want to treat others like we'd like to be treated, with respect, dignity, all of those things. And, you know, we used to do things when I was growing up, and even in our local churches, we would dedicate children. And you would see that, and we would all take a pledge. And that pledge was that we would aid and assist in the development of that child.
Absolutely.
And all of our communities, not just children, we have investment in our communities, in our children, you know, that we should be concerned. We should care for them like we care for ourselves. That when something is not correct with them or they're having an issue, that we should reach out and do that in a respectable way, not in an intrusive way. But we need to address it, and we need to get beyond these barriers of shame and feeling, well, maybe that's someone else's job. Well, we know what happens when we leave it for others to do. It doesn't get done. And then we look back and say a tragedy occurred and I wish I would have said something. I knew something was going on, but I never said anything about it. And you know, JW, one of the things that we talk about in mental health first aid, which is one of the things that Eastpointe offers to all of our, you know, counties, our communities and stuff, we offer this training, this science and evidence-based training. And we talk about how we help others by looking at those key things called signs and symptoms, not diagnosis. You know, we're not calling you to be therapists, not to be primary care physicians, but to just look for signs and symptoms. They're available. There's always things that are available. If you will look, you can pick up on things and how to appropriately have interaction with that person without being intrusive, how to talk with them and start that conversation in a non-threatening, unjudgmental approach.
And I think that's an important part of this process as we talk about this subject today, is those signs and symptoms become critical. And at the same time, the play between what you mentioned a while ago about stigma and looking at the signs and symptoms, it's easy to flip it too far and end up creating some sense of stigma. Even if you recognize a sign and symptom, there's other action to be taken.
Absolutely. And, you know, we never want to use uncertainty and not knowing to make judgment about something. Mm-hmm. You know, it was real popular a few years ago, every time that there was a mental health challenge, and I saw this on television and radio, and I saw it with certain circles of people and friends. Everybody was bipolar. It was popular. Bipolar. Oh, that person is bipolar. No, they're not bipolar. That is a specific mental health challenges with manic highs mm-hmm. and depressed lows. Mm-hmm. It's specific, and everybody did not fit that category. And you know, sometimes we're just having stress. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we go through depression. Depression is normal. Mm-hmm. You know, we all feel it. Mm-hmm. And there's many different types of depression. You know, but we tend to focus on clinical depression, which is brain chemistry. Mm-hmm. It's an imbalance that we usually, doctors, psychiatrists, those medical professionals, not myself, I'm not qualified, mm-hmm. but they treat this with medication maintenance to keep stability with major depression. But there's other types, and sometimes it's situational depression. We all experience that. You know, sometimes there's too much month at the end of the money, mm-hmm. and we get stressed like, whoa, I got bills coming, those need to be paid. How do I do that? Mm-hmm. And it stresses us out. And, you know, our blood pressure goes up, and, you know, we start having digestive issues, and all of those things are directly related to our mental health. And that's an example of how mental health affects physical health.
Absolutely, and I want to follow up on that after our break. We're going to take a quick break and come back. These are the critical issues that folks need to be aware of, especially now and going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're talking with Willam Sellers with Eastpointe Managed Care Organization about behavioral health in your house.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're talking about mental health. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, May 2022. A lot's been happening. Willam Sellers, community relations person here with Eastpointe Managed Care Organization. Willam, you got a lot of things going on. Anytime I talk to someone that's got 3 children, much less 3 boys, and I'll mention the bulldog, you've got a whole lot going on just in one pocket. And now we're talking about mental health as it relates to everyone. You were just talking as we were going to break about some symptoms and signs and that kind of thing. Is it important for folks individually, personally, not to just think about it in other people, but think about it as it relates to themselves, and talk to us about what actions should be taken?
Sure. And we were talking about depression.
Yeah.
And once again, there's multiple different kinds of depression. Mm-hmm. You know, clinical depression, situational depression that we mentioned, you know, where those stressors that come along with, you know, children, relationships, finances, you know, trying to make it to payday and all those things. We all know about that. You know, we live in a real world. You know, we live life on life's terms, so to speak. But there's another part to that, and I just wanted to talk about 4 types of depression, and I've mentioned the first 2. The next one is seasonal depression. And we're seeing a lot now, and, you know, with pandemic, we have been locked in, and it's kind of mimicked seasonal depression, where we've been, you know, sheltering in place, which is very much like being inside, sort of like our neighbors in Alaska and Canada. Mm-hmm. You know, we see a lot of seasonal depression there, where they kind of feel hopeless. And, you know, doctors will refer to it, and others as well, as cabin fever and that type of thing. Yeah. It is a reality, and, you know, and it's good to get outside. And I remember as a child, you know, when it would rain for several days during the midsummer, you know, we all know about that living here in, you know, southern North Carolina. We certainly have that rainy season. I'm like, will it ever stop raining so we can go outside and actually do something? Because in those days, we actually spent more time outside. And I won't go there, but yeah, and you know, that's seasonal depression, and it's a reality.
The part of depression versus, I guess, for lack of a better term, the sick issue of getting so messed up mentally that you think about either doing something that is totally deranged to someone else or to yourself. Is there a area in there that it becomes apparent, or can people get in those positions and family members completely miss it?
You know, that's a great question. And yes, they do miss it. And sometimes it's because we can't see the forest for the trees, so to speak. It's there, but you know, sometimes we don't know how to respond, so we don't respond, and that's never the right answer. You know, it's always good to say, look, tell me what I don't know here, because I know something's going on. Let's have some conversation. Let's interact. Please tell me what you're feeling, what you're experiencing here. Help me help you. And we have barriers with that, JW. We really do. And we've got to get beyond the shame of asking, of having that, being, you know, able to ask the question. And we talk about that again in mental health first aid. And we actually have an exercise where we talk about, and we have the participants to turn to each other and say, are you thinking about killing yourself? And say it with a straight face. Are you thinking about ending your life, you know, by suicide? Notice I didn't say commit suicide. It's a negative term, and we try to avoid negative language and stuff because we're trying to, you know, elevate and not stigmatize or not shame or blame. But we've got to be able to say that even with depression. We've got to say, I have noticed, and notice I'm pointing to me. I'm not saying you are not doing these things where we're shaming and blaming and being judgmental. We start with ourselves and say, I have noticed that you're not doing some of the things that I know you enjoy doing. You know, I know you enjoy sports. I know you enjoy fishing. I know you enjoy going out with your friends, and you seem to be isolated. You're not doing that. Can we respectfully have that conversation? And you ask for permission to go into that conversation. And you'll be surprised that they want to talk about it, but for some reason there's a mental block. And they can't get beyond that to actually say, please ask me. I want to tell you, but I can't do it unless you ask me.
Right.
And there's I'm going to just put this plug in. Kevin Hines, and you might have heard about Kevin. Kevin was the gentleman that jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge.
Actually met him.
Exactly. He's got a video that's out called The Ripple Effect, and we have that at Eastpointe, and we'll be more than glad to share it if there's a group that would like to see that or would like to experience that. But Kevin talks about being a person living with bipolar disorder. He was talking about how his family tried to help and tried to assist him, but they didn't know what was going on. They were not therapists. They were not trained in clinical disciplines. So they would just say, Kevin, what can I do? Can we hang out today? Can we go to the movies? They were trying to help, but they were kind of going in the wrong direction. And Kevin said to them, basically, after this suicide attempt, where he actually jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge.
Well, survived it.
Survived.
And he's like one of the only ones, or very few, that survived that?
One of the only ones that I know about.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, back in those days, it was all over the internet. The Golden Gate Bridge was the place to go if you were thinking about that, and which was very, very sad that information's out there, but it's out there.
Yeah.
And he actually did that. And he talks about afterwards that all I wanted my family to do was ask me, Kevin, are you thinking about ending your life by means of suicide? That was the one question, but they never asked, and he actually tried to kill himself unsuccessfully, and thank goodness for that. Thank goodness for that.
That's such an interesting story, because the point you make is that sometimes we are not willing to step up and go to that place, and they're not going to come to us to that place. But if that place exists, the best way to resolve it is to call it out. Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly. And we're operating by different rules now, JW. We really are. You know, when I was growing up, and I'm not going to talk about how far back that was, we're going to kind of leave that where it is. But when I was growing up, you know, we had dinner around the table around 6 o'clock. We would sit down, and that was family therapy time, even though we thought it was just a family meal time. It was the time when Johnny was stirring in his mashed potatoes, the question was going to come up. Why are you stirring in your mashed potatoes? What happened today? Of course, one of the siblings would say, well, Johnny's got a girlfriend and they're not getting along very well. And he's like, well, did you have to tell that? But it would come out. And a lot of things were addressed because we had that time together as families. And I think we miss that unit. I mean, we live in a different culture now where everybody eats, you know, when they have time to eat. It's a microwave world and a cell phone world, and we just don't have that interaction, and things get overlooked that are going on. And now we don't know that Johnny had a girlfriend, or Johnny's having issues with his girlfriend, or perhaps Johnny needs to talk about why he's having issues. And we miss that, I think, because we have evolved to a different way of living. Do traumas for children, your analysis that just on this subject, do traumas that are children's traumas or adolescent traumas, do we tend to overlook them as not being as significant as adult traumas? Yeah, and once again, you asked some of the best questions. Yeah, and we know that children, adolescents have this great thing called resilience, meaning they just bounce back. I mean, they can endure horrific things. And we see it all the time. We hear about people who pass away, and it's like they had 2 children. I really, feel so bad for the children. And it is a tragedy for them, and it does have serious adverse effects on them. But their resilience, they will bounce back in time. They have that. It's built into them. But because of that, we discard it and say, well, I guess they're okay now. And we don't circle back, which is an old cowboy term. We don't circle back and say, I just want to talk. You seem to be doing okay, but can we talk about, are you really okay? Tell me how that is for you now. How is it different now that you're making your way without mom or without dad or without grandma or your granddad that I know you were so close to? Have that conversation. It's important to circle back with everyone, because things are not always as they appear. We all can, put our best foot forward and look good, but many times we're suffering and dying in silence. And that shows up at some point in our life, and that one little stream. And you mentioned something that I thought was just so much on point, and that is the world we're living in now, the technology world, the Facebook world, the phone world, whatever you want to call it. But we don't see those things. And the younger folks, when I say younger, I'm talking even like single digits, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, are consumed with this. When we come back from this break, I want to touch on that a bit and get you to kind of give us an analysis of where we are, and is there some kind of projected time that we need to say to our children? And a father with 3, this, do we say to them, and again, back in my day, it was don't be watching TV too much or get out of the house.
let's talk about that a bit. So we're going to take a break. We'll come right back.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. We're going to take a quick break. We're talking about Behavioral Health, Mental Health Awareness Month, May 2022. We're talking with Willam Sellers. We'll be back in a moment.
At home or away, knowing who is at your door is priceless. Star Communications is here to help with its doorbell security camera by Skybell. Live viewing and two-way audio equips you with the ability to always see and greet anyone that shows up at your door. If this is the kind of confidence you are looking for, call Star Communications today at 1-800-706-6538 to learn more about this intelligent security that you can always depend on.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us. The name of the show is We Should Know. If you just happen to be tuning us in on the radio, on your car, driving down the road, or if you're watching us on Star Communications TV channel 16, we're talking about behavioral health. Most folks refer to it as mental health. We're talking with Willam Sellers, who has been involved in this industry for 32 plus years, been very well dosed in it, both academically and practically. When we went to break, Willam, we were touching on this area of adolescent behavior and kind of our role and responsibility. I know one of the slogans at Eastpointe Managed Care Organization, whom you work for, it talks about working on behalf and coordinating for the people out there, for the members, for the customers, for the folks in the communities. And you do a lot of that. You're kind of a frontline person. When we talk about the adolescent piece, is there a time when we look at our children, or for many folks listening, maybe grandchildren, and say there's enough time, you've had enough time on the device, whether it's the phone or whether it's a tablet, you've had enough time, as you mentioned a while ago, it's time to get out in the sunshine.
Yeah, and JW, most of our children, as they have another birthday and they get older, we have well checks. We go to the primary care physicians and there's a questionnaire.
Absolutely.
And that questionnaire has a number of questions, many of which deal with physical health, but there's also mental and behavioral health questions in that. And one of the ones is about how much screen time does your child have each day? In other words, how much internet time, how much iPad time, how much television time, how many games or Game Boys or whatever the new trend is at this moment. They're going to ask those questions because we know that at a certain amount of time, it affects our brain. It affects our functioning. And adolescent brains are not developed. They are developing. And I say that continually, it's an ongoing thing. They're developing, and too much screen time takes away from normal development, psychological development, emotional development, spiritual development. And I say that, because you don't hear a lot about that, but it's very important. It's the holistic approach to wellness that all of those spheres have to be addressed, openly. And, the rule in my house is real simple. You can have some screen time when your homework is finished, when dinner is finished, when you have got your clothes out for tomorrow, your lunch boxes are secured and you're ready to go with that. Everything's in place for the next day. You can have a little bit of screen time, but that screen time has to end an hour before bedtime. It has to end because, why? We need to psychologically turn that off. We don't need to see those little creatures that they've been playing with, when it's time to go to sleep. They don't need to be floating around. It affects sleep pattern. And we know deep sleep is very important in development. And, children have to go, they have to take tests and all of those things. And it affects their outcome measures, taking tests and being connected in school. And certainly it's connected to their behavior, the way that they conduct themselves at school and with others. So it's very important to limit that. And it's not popular, and it's not popular at my house, but it's a rule at my house that we have to do that to be healthy, happy, and move forward like we should.
One of the things that you just alluded to, it struck me that, do you sense that we in our homes, and I'm using it in a broader sense, do we lack structure in our homes? Have we lost that sense of structure where you have maybe two parents working and they come in and everybody's got something going on, and you just need to get the kid occupied for a few minutes, and you give them this while you're fixing that. And it's not necessarily a fault, but it's something that just seems to have proliferated over time.
Yeah, and I'll approach that question with caution.
Yes.
Not that I'm being negative or derogatory in any way with the way that, in 2022, the way families exist, operate, and function today, because we live in a different world and things are different. Many things have changed. We've got two parents in the home that are working, and many times childcare is not as readily available for certain things. And not saying it's right, but we use electronics and we use those things as babysitters many times to occupy, watch TV so that I can get a load of clothes washing, or I can get dinner on the table, or so that I can be prepared for what's coming tomorrow. Kind of occupy yourself. So we use those things, not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying it does change dynamics, to try to babysit or to function. So it's different now, and there's deficits because of it, and we see that. One of the studies that I looked at is that pediatricians are saying that, as high as 40% of the individuals they're seeing are showing slight delay. Now, we know some of that is because of COVID. We know some of that is because of some of the things that we have endured. But it also tells me that we're missing the mark on, having that time to read a book before bedtime, open a book, or have some quiet time, some imaginary time, some time to think, some time to, take a crayon, for the smaller children, draw a picture, put it on the refrigerator, something to stimulate those creative things that we have in us, or time to do something like that, to stimulate us, and have normal brain development. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, and I'm hearing you say this, is that the children not only have and need a sense of structure, but part of that, and the other word that could be added to that, is a sense of stability as well. If they are in school and there's all kinds of things they're exposed to at school,
right,
when they get to that place that's supposed to be like the safe haven, are they actually, without saying it, looking for structure, looking for someone to say, the things that you said that you do at your house, that this is what we do at this time, and they're looking for that. Is that important?
I think it's important. And love is directly related to structure. Children will never tell you this. Adolescents will never tell you this. My boys would never tell me this. But they need structure. They want structure. They want to know where the line is drawn. They want to know where the boundaries are. I live on a 70-acre farm. I've lived there for many generations of my family. We have fencing on that farm. That is important. Livestock know where the fencing is, and they know that there's boundaries, and they know there's consequences if they try to go beyond the boundaries. And our children today, they need structural boundaries. They need to know that there's rules. We need to be honest. We need to keep the rules. It's not popular sometimes to be a real parent. Parenting is not being a friend. And many times we want to be friends to our children, especially when they're teenagers. We want their friends to like us and that type of thing. But I've met most of my kids' friends. I don't want to be a friend like them. And I say that, in a humorous way.
Yeah.
But still, we have to be parents, and we have to be structured, because there's consequences if we do not maintain that structure. Because at some point, there's going to be an outcome that's not where it should be with them. And we're going to have to reevaluate, what did I not do? Where did I fail here? When should I have leaned a little bit more in on this situation, rather than just back off and pretend it didn't exist? Yeah.
I read something some time ago that this young adolescent, preteen, They did some kind of evaluation. He got into some trouble, and the result of that was that he felt like he would not have gotten in that trouble had he not had not only the structure, but for somebody to tell him, no, you can't do that, or you can't go there. And the reason he used that was interesting, because it was his excuse to the larger group that he had a reason for not participating, that he would have done it but my father or mother will not let me do it. And that was important, to say, no, you're not going to do it.
Right. And I grew up with parents that were very structured. They were hardworking, very respected in our community. And I say this openly, I didn't grow up with the best of everything, but we made the best of everything that we had, and that was important. But we knew there were rules, and there was consequences for breaking those rules. And, I grew up without a criminal record. Mm-hmm. I grew up and, was able to get into college. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have barriers of being able to be successful in the work and the things I wanted to do. And that goes back to those humble beginnings of the structure of saying, this is the rule. If you violate the rules, then there's consequences for them. And I think that's important. It goes back to parenting. It is not easy. It is necessary.
And I think as we kind of continue this conversation, we start seeing almost a roadmap unfold of where we're at, where we've been, where we might go, the development of issues that are both, as you mentioned a while ago, that may start out as a behavioral or a mental issue, easily ends up being a biological issue. And oftentimes folks have ready access, fortunately, more so to medical doctors than they do psychological behavioral health specialists. But that's a whole nother development thing that I think I'd like to talk about maybe in this next segment, is kind of explore that on the bigger scale of both adolescents, adults, even aging, people that are aging, that, reached that 70 mark or 75 and they're looking at that last trimester. So want to touch on all that when we come back for this next segment. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being with us. We're talking with Willam Sellers, Mental Health Awareness Month. And of course, he works for Eastpointe. Call a friend, stay tuned. We're going to give you some telephone numbers.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know's on there. J.W. Simmons, your host. I want to thank you again for your comments and input to this show over the years, literally over 10 years now, involved in trying to bring information and education to you, and you have been so important to this process, sending us a contact or sending us information to weshouldknow.edu@gmail.com. That's weshouldknow.edu@gmail.com. You've also dropped some notes in there. Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina. You can just send it to We Should Know, or if you want to do it quickly, just put WSK on it and send it to Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina. We really do appreciate your input. I also want to thank all those folks at the radio station, Robert Stroud with the Boogie Shoes Radio Network, Wayne Weeks that does a number of shows weekly, Monday through Friday, the Gospel Hour. We appreciate what Wayne does, Tommy the Fly, and all of the things that he does down there, and all the folks at the radio station. Thank you for mentioning this show and keeping the name out there. Today we're talking about mental health. We're talking with Willam Sellers with Eastpointe Behavioral Health. Willam, we're going to put on the screen the contact information for Eastpointe, and there's a number, toll-free number, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days. It's there for crisis support, and that is, tell us what that is. That's to get us to the right place or at the right time?
Right. That is the access to care for Eastpointe. MCO, and we're very, very proud of our call center. It is, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Doesn't matter if it's Christmas morning, you know that we have a lot of issues during holidays sometimes, and it's always good. Here's the beautiful thing about when you call that 1-800-913-6109 number, it's on the screen. When you call that number, you're going to speak to a live person, JW. We're very proud of that. You're not going to get an automated phone system. You're going to talk to a live clinician. Many of those are licensed clinicians. They're going to do an assessment. They're going to ask you some questions, just like going to the doctor's office. We need to know what's going on, little social history, little family history, little medical history, all of those things, allergies, sensitivities. You may get some of those questions so that they can make an accurate assessment. After they do that, and the benchmarks for Eastpointe is that we want to always give you voice, and we want to always give you choice, which means that you get to choose your provider. We're not locking you into that you've got to go a certain place. You do have voice with us. You do have choice at all times. We care about what you think, and your wellness is our number one priority. So after that, we're going to give you some options of providers in your area that address whatever challenges that you may be experiencing, or your child or a family member or friend or whoever it might be. Again, we try to do 30 miles, 30 minutes if we can, try to make sure that you get what you need. We do have mobile crisis services. And once again, sometimes there's crisis situations where, like some of the cases we were talking about, where that individual may be having suicidal ideations or thoughts, or it may be unclear whether or not they're safe. And that's a good call. And that can be accessed through Eastpointe as well, through the 1-800 number. And they will dispatch mobile crisis that will go out, basically do an assessment, work with that individual to get them connected, for whatever they may need, whether it's emergent, whether it's urgent, whether it's routine. Those are state definitions based on that assessment that lets us know, at what level of care that individual may need. And we get them connected with that service or whatever that might be, or if they need to go to the hospital or, that type of extended treatment. And then once they receive their treatment, the step down treatments. So Eastpointe is involved in all of that. Eastpointe is my flagship. I have the best job there is on the planet. Community relations is the best of the best. Just like today, I'm not in an office. I'm sitting here and talking about you, the things that are passionate to me about wellness and the good things. We want the same for everyone else. So yeah, that's a big part of it.
Well, and one of the things that's interesting to me, you mentioned that number, that 1-800-913-6109. That number then gets you connected to, I'm not necessarily say the help you need, but not only the information you need, but the complexity of what's going on. One number that always interests me, there's a national suicide watch line. Is this number that we're giving out now, is that accessible? And is there a need that a person needs to call the other number, or will they get everything right here?
The beauty of having the 911 system as we have nationally is we have 3 digits to remember. 911 in the case of an emergency. The beautiful thing about calling Eastpointe on the 800 number, you are tapped in immediately. I mean, if 911 needs to be involved, that can happen.
Right.
If crisis needs to be involved, you can get there. But what it is, it's a network, a hub that will get you connected for whatever you need, where you only have to remember one number.
I hear exactly what you're saying. It's almost like you've got multiple plugs in your house. No matter where you plug that item in, you're going to get the connectivity you need to make it work.
Exactly. And there's no wrong doors, JW. I think that's the wonderful thing. There's no wrong doors to help and access when it comes to Eastpointe. I mean, if the call comes to me, I'm gonna make sure it gets to the call center. If you happen to contact another department or whatever, we are gonna channel you to the right department through that call center so we can get you connected immediately for whatever services you need. So there's no wrong here. We only want to move it in the right direction. It's about navigating to wellness.
You know, we're kind of obviously in our last segment here, and I want to try to make sure we don't miss anything. There's a lot of stuff that you've got that we need to get out. But the whole scope of mental health, we're looking at everything from adolescent to the teenage years to early development to marriage life to even elder and senior citizen support. All of these things has its own nuances, does it not?
Yes, it does. You know, we are a unit, and you know, mental health is for everyone. You know, we don't need to leave anyone out of the equation. You may say, well, this is a 3-year-old we have in the house. We know when they're in distress, right? We know when there's anxiety. Mm-hmm. You know, it could be an elderly parent. You know, there's distress. You know, it doesn't matter who you are. Mental health is for everyone. And we are stewards to help others. Again, it goes back to that golden rule. Mm-hmm. You know, we've got to ask the questions and take care of our own and reach out to others, you know, that may be having some issues. So it's important.
One of the things I want to mention, and a couple of times you've mentioned the golden rule, and of course we don't shy away from talking about how important religion is on this show or anything on the radio station or whatever. How important is a good cohesive relationship with a church body to mental health?
I can't stress how important the faith community is. The faith community serves a very part, and you know, we were talking about that holistic wheel a while ago, the physical, the emotional, the psychological, the spiritual, the social, all of that fits together. Spirituality is a huge, huge part of recovery. And we celebrate Recovery Month in September. Yeah. And of course, we have overdose awareness at the end of August, which we promote heavy. But, recovery has to happen because something is moving, something is changing in us, and that is spirituality. Now, you know, my view of spirituality could be different from others, and that's okay. It was designed that way. It will still serve the purpose, you know, but it's a higher power of our understanding. That is the spiritual part of it, and it's very important in wellness and recovery. But the faith community serves a role, JW, that has been so valuable with some of the hurricanes we've had in the past, some of the disasters we've had. You know, they have served meals, they have opened their facilities for folks to sleep, from to have, you know, dry clothes, all of these things, certainly in our area, in the southern counties of Eastpointe. So, you know, they serve a very valuable role, you know, so like Baptist Men's Association have cut trees during storms. They've helped to build ramps and repair things and stuff. So they serve such a valuable purpose, you know, in our area.
We're coming up on the last few seconds here to show. I want to give you about 30 seconds for any closing remarks or things you want to mention.
You know, once again, this is National Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's nothing new. We're just talking about some things today that are current, but this has been in place since 1949, JW. I mean, it's been around a while, so these conversations have been going on, and that tells us how important it is that we continue to have this conversation about personal mental health, about our family's mental health, and about our community's mental health, that we are, you know, a village, and we have to take care of each other.
Well, and again, from us to you and to Eastpointe, we appreciate everything all the members of Eastpointe does, and the place that they hold in the communities they serve in this state is critically important. And William, going forward, it's always good to know that you have an open mic anytime you need to come on this show and speak to issues that, if we don't address and put out there so folks will know, could literally devastate and destroy our community. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being with us, and just let you know, each and every week we're here at Channel 16, Star Communications, WCLN Radio, bringing you information and education from folks that do the job, that's on the front lines, that's working the services that you may need to have access to, that you may know someone that needs access to, and these are the folks you need to hear from. And again, as we look forward to next week, we'll stay in touch with you. You stay in touch with us. And as always, when we're closing our show, we look forward to saying, may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.